All right, in this video, we're going to talk about the mouth really briefly. We already kind of looked at some of the form of the lips. I'm just going to talk about just how a simplified version of the mouth kind of behaves. There is obviously more complexities. One thing I want you to keep in mind is that the skull is curved and your jaw is curved. So this sense of curvature that's in there. So when you're drawing, oh, what happened there? When you're drawing a character, you don't want, especially if it's in like in a 3/4 view, you want to kind of keep that in mind, and the mouth won't be like flat. Like you have that kind of sense of curvature that's kind of moving around the mouth. The other thing is I want you to note that often I will draw the lip line between the upper and lower lip, and this is just because, and it's actually the lower lip line that's reading, because the upper lip casts a shadow down onto the lower lip. So we're going to kind of ensure that that's darker. So it's the lower lip line reads dark. And that's, in truth be told, I'm referring to like kind of that line here in between. I'm not typically drawing this part. Usually I'm just focusing on that like in between the two lips. The last thing you want to note is that the corners of the mouths are a lot more important than we think. So we want to really emphasize the corners of the mouth. This really implies expression, and I'm going to kind of show you how much so it does. I'm going to borrow another layer here where I've drawn some faces, and I want to play around, or where I've already previously drawn some faces. Oops. And I want to play around with creating the mouth. So I'm keeping all of those things in mind. So if I kind of draw kind of a neutral mouth here, or it's kind of neutral into a smile, but I want to, if I play around with the corners of my mouth, especially if they're upwards or if they're kind of downwards, it really kind of changes the effect. So make sure you're really emphasizing those corners of the mouth. And I want you to play around just kind of how that simple kind of change can really make a really big difference in terms of the expression. But those kind of inner edges of the mouth really emphasize that happiness or sadness or anger, etc. So I want you to play around with that, and I want you to also start combining some of those eyebrows that we've discussed too in here, just to really kind of emphasize, and you can really see the difference that you can create just with those two simple combinations.